Welcome to the hookedj podcast.
Who the fuck is that guy? Who the fuck is that?
When it's all said and done, I know one thing that I can do. I can fight. I can give it, and I can take it.
You should have left me over on that other game that I'm from, that more ruthless game where we bounce heads off the canvas and drill them into the floor. You should have left me where I was.
The show starts now.
So on today's episode, we talk about the UFC and their trade of a lifetime, that being Demetrius Johnson, aka Mighty Mouse, for Ben Askren. They traded Mighty Mouse to ONE FC, and UFC got Ben Askren. And it poses a lot of questions from there. Exactly what do trade deals mean now if we're doing that in UFC? Who can we get for it? Michael Chandler for Bellator. Douglas Lima. The Pitbulls. There's a lot of good fighters over there. But what does this mean going forward? What does it mean for the welterweight division in the UFC? That's a big get for the UFC to get Ben Askren. So there's a lot of questions we're going to try to figure it out.
Or just ask a lot of questions rhetorically.
Probably. There's a lot of those, yeah.
If this is a real thing, because the deal's not done yet, they're waiting for all parties to finish signing, and they're hoping to have it done by the end of the week.
It's like 98% complete, according to Askren on Twitter. And Mighty Mouse has already took the UFC out of his Twitter name and a couple other things. And so it's interesting to see how this is gonna go down and what exactly it means for the welterweight division.
So let's start with what it means in general. If we start with the fact that they're going to trade fighters, this hasn't really happened in the MMA community. We used to have the UFC allow their fighters to go in the Pride tournament and a few instances like that, but it's more along the lines of UFC trying to prove that they have the better fighters. This is completely different. This is, we want this guy, which it kind of feels like they're bringing him in just to take out Khabib, like a hired hitman, or we want that guy. We're trying to get rid of this division because of this, or Mighty Mouse maybe approached them. Maybe he approached them like, hey, I think you guys are going to shut down the 125 division. Let me get out of my contract so I can explore other options.
It's an interesting thing that they did. Because obviously, the big people of the UFC, the bigger guys in general, they get more airtime, if you will. A lot more people will watch those fights, not the smaller guys.
Well, if there was a 125er kind of like Conor, the 125ers would be blowing up all over the place.
Yeah, but there's not. That's the thing. And in ONE FC,
Mighty Mouse is too humble.
They're all smaller guys. That's their main thing because most of it's focused in like Asia and Thailand, and those are just smaller people. And I think that's a good trade for them because they're like, this is our smaller divisions are the ones we put forth the most, and not really the bigger ones. They do have the heavyweight champ and all that there, but their main focus is on the smaller guys. So I could see why they wanted Mighty Mouse. I could see why they were like, we'll take the pound for pound greatest at that lightweight, at the flyweight of all time. I'll take him, If you want Askren, who's technically retired, we'll give him to you.
Well, he's technically retired, but he did say he would come out of retirement for the opportunity of a lifetime, and this is right up that alley. Now, my question is, since Mighty Mouse is still under contract with the UFC and Ben Askren was still under contract with ONE FC or One Fighting Championship, whatever it is, are both parties allowing them to be released with the stipulation that the other party gets to pick them up exclusively? Or, did ONE FC put that on the table? Like, who started this? Because I know for a while now the fans have been asking and tweeting and Instagramming Dana all about Ben Askren, like, get Ben over here, get Ben over here. And I feel like this is kind of like a social pressure for them. Hey, they got a good opportunity to get him. Let's get him. So, my thing is, who even sat down and was like, you know what? Maybe we should look into this because that guy needs a hug.
Dana doesn't want anything to do with askren.
Well, Askren speaks his mind.
Yeah, that's why.
Yeah, Dana likes.
That's an executive decision. That's not a Dana White decision. That's a guy who's like, I want to put on this because people want it, and the UFC focus more on what the people want now, especially since Conor did his stuff, and they're all about profits and everything. So I think that's probably what it was for sure. It's one of those things now that since there's these trades going, or we only know of one. Is there an open possibility of more? And if so, who gets the next one? If UFC gets the first pick in the draft, does Scott Coker get the next one with Bellator? And I want to know how this works. There's not really a system set up for it.
It would be interesting to see like a fighter draft where all the smaller promotions or like the mid-level promotions put forth their champions or like their runners-up and some of the better guys in their divisions to go in there to see who's going to get drafted. But that's kind of what the Contender Series is, and tough.
The thing about that is, say there was a draft thing like that, the UFC would never enter it because then they're admitting that there's other organizations that are on par. Because they're like, well, obviously we need to divide this up against organizations opposed to just people,
Right.
So I don't think the UFC would admit to that or try to, say we're into it.
I think trade deals are good, and I think
there's definitely need to be trading. Definitely.
I think this is probably one of the better moves that the UFC has made in a while. Not just publicly, for publicity, I should say, but in the eyes of the fans, like who, especially real fighting fans who've watched other, if you're just a UFC guy, that's fine. But if you don't watch any of the Bellator, you don't watch any of the ONE FC, even just the title fights or the big fights, you're kind of missing out on the other talent because there is talent that comes into the UFC from other areas like Strikeforce. When Strikeforce got absorbed, look how many people are in the UFC because of Strikeforce.
All of UFC's biggest stars came from Strikeforce. And before that, all their stars came from Pride. UFC has this nag of absorbing stuff from other people. They take the best from other organizations and just put them on a bigger stage.
Well, their gripe now, or I shouldn't say their gripe, what they're proud of now is just being able to tell anybody who walks by that they have the best fighters in the world. And if they're going to be doing trades, if this is a one-time deal, that's interesting. But if it's something that they put on the table more often, I'm really looking forward to that because I would like to see Douglas Lima come over from Bellator. I would like to see Rory come back. But then again, we got to get these fighters paid more money.
The interesting thing about it is because of this, it seems like there might be more cross-promotion. It's something that's never going to happen with the UFC. They're not that type of promotion. But other promotions, say like Bellator, KSW, ONE FC, all those, that would be interesting to see the cross promotion, like how boxing does, or like the WBC and whatever the other ones are. There's like 500 boxing organizations. Yeah. When they cross promote, they're like, oh, we're putting two belts on the line because they're all kind of intertwined at some point.
Yeah, I think it has to do with the commissions for boxing. Commissions all
I don't know anything about the commissions of boxing and all that, but I know the promotions are all set up differently and all that. But it puts up this question of like, well, why not do that just for the just for the fans' sake? Everyone wants to see like their favorite versus their favorite, and oftentimes it's in different promotions. Like Michael Chandler would be amazing to watch in an octagon, but chances are he's never going to get in the UFC because he's pretty off with Bellator. Like he loves being there. He signed I think it was like 7-fight contract or whatever, a massive contract over there because they wanted to keep him. Roy did the same thing. Ryan Bader, all of them. Those two might have been in the UFC at one point, but they're really happy in Bellator. So it would be nice to see someone, say from Bellator, acknowledge another promotion like ONE FC, Ryzen, Pancrase, all those, and be like, we kind of want to intertwine, kind of like boxing does. That way you get these massive super fights.
That's true. I mean, the super fight potential that's coming out of this trade deal is just massive. If we look towards the potential, I should say, Rory is sitting at what, 170? He's in the 170s. Yeah, because that's where
No, he's a welterweight. He's 170.
he's a 170.
He fought a middleweight last.
Yeah,
He
so
went up to fight Gegard.
that's right. He got whooped so bad. With Rory being at 170, I think that means Douglas Lima's at 170. Now, let's just say Lima comes over to the 170s. That lights up the UFC rankings. That puts them all on notice because Douglas Lima is good. He is really good. And you throw him in the mix, now you have all these other guys that are going to be trying to go from. I don't think Lima would be able to take out T Wood, depending on which T Wood shows up. But I think he would be a really good combatant against most people in the 170s.
So let's talk about Ben Askren in general. He's in the or supposedly in the UFC. Say he's getting there now. I'm going to assume that he already is. They said pretty much the deal's done.
And he's pretty much called out the entire 170
today
division.
he was like all over Twitter.
Which, if you haven't looked, go check out Ben Askren's Twitter from, what's today, the 25th?
Yeah.
From the 25th, and he put everybody on notice. He was like, who wants it first? Mike Platinum Perry spoke up. He's like, nah, you ain't nothing.
He went after Till, Perry.
That was the only one he called out directly. Everybody else said
Till,
something and he responded to.
Till, Perry, Masvidal. There was someone else, wasn't
He talked shit about Colby.
Yeah, Colby, yeah.
He's like,
he's been talking shit about him for like a year and a half now.
Oh man, I look forward to Ben Askren coming in and just, if he comes in, I'm looking forward to him. Yeah, a lot of people aren't gonna like his fighting style. I'll just put that out there.
Here's the funny thing about everyone's like, oh, you don't like his fight style because it's very much the GSP. I'm going for the win, right? But if you look at his last couple fights, they were finishes. They were TKOs. I think there was a submission in there. But he finishes fights unlike most wrestlers that go to decision, like Colby Covington. Most of his were decision. T Wood, a lot of his were decision recently.
Yeah, recently.
GSP, his was a lot of decisions. There was a lot of decisions when you take that wrestling aspect to it. But Ben Askren doesn't really have that problem. A lot of it were, there's a couple TKOs. There's a submission, decision. A lot of finishes. I think he finished. Out of his 18 fights, he's finished 11 of them. The last half, that wasn't even the beginning.
Yeah, a lot of people just don't like his fighting style because he's just gonna lay and pray and wait for you to make a mistake and then punch you out and TKO you, just sit on top of you. And wave to the crowd as he rodeos you on the back, which is hilarious. Probably one of the best gifts you'll ever see when it comes to MMA. Ben Askren, he's going to bring, if the deal is 100% and it goes through, we won't know until everybody confirms they're into the deal. But whenever he comes in, he's going to put the 170, or if he can make the 155 cut and fight Khabib, that's going to be great too. But he's going to put a lot of people on notice because there's not a lot of people who can deal with the pressure that he brings, and that top mount is just ridiculous.
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting to see what he's going to do. He's obviously a welterweight. I know he's got a past with T Wood. I don't know exactly what it was.
Well, they're training buddies on several occasions, and they're friends. So I don't really see him fighting Woodley for a belt. I think he would probably drop to Khabib's weight and fight him because he's talked all kinds of shit about Khabib before too.
Well, he said he was the answer to him. And one little while back, he said, "I'm the answer to Khabib. I can beat him, no problem. My fighting style is better than his." Yeah. And he said his wrestling was better than his, which that's kind of debatable because they're both outstanding on the ground. It's just who's better than who.
Ben's more versatile though. Khabib always goes for a single leg.
Recently, he's gone for a single leg. And
but
that's
once
the
you
last
get a
couple
habit,
fights.
Once you get a habit, though, man.
So maybe he'll change it up going forward, but who knows? He has a habit of doing the single, which I can see why it knocks you off balance. But most time you're not going to get it in MMA because you don't have shoes on. That's what really makes a single work, especially in wrestling, is the shoes because you have the extra grip. Whereas Askren, if he's going to take you down, he's going to do it regardless. I don't think he's really had a problem with that at all in any of his fights.
His grip is ridiculous.
Have you seen
the
him
videos of
crushing
crushing
watermelons and shit?
Fucking 2 watermelons at once. Pop pumpkins, man. His grip is just undeniable. If he can get his arms around you, you're done. And I think if he does that to Khabib will be the first time Khabib gets out wrestled.
Well, here's the interesting part is the people who have wrestled Khabib say he's like the strongest dude they've ever wrestled before, right? Just the grip strength, the way he sits on you, the way he takes you down and holds you down. And then people say the same thing about Ben Askren. Like, he's got a really good technique, but he's got this, like, farm boy strength where he knows, like, it's just kind of natural to him to grab you and you're not moving anywhere.
Yeah, here's the thing, though. Khabib's fighting 155ers. Ben's fighting 170. I would think his durability and his strength is going to be a little bit higher if he's holding down and wrestling people that are at 170, 180 naturally. Because if he's wrestling with Tyron, then he's the 170 champ, but his walk around weight's got to be 185, 90.
Yeah, but
wrestling.
No, well, it's not just. It's like when Khabib, he's out of camp, he's got to be 190ish. He's a big dude.
Yeah,
and he's.
But then again, a 40-pound cut, it still gives you a lot of advancement.
He's wrestling people, on the off time that are middleweights who, when they're off, they're up in the 120s or the 220s. They're way up there, because middleweights, it's pretty much like every division. They cut a lot of weight to get down to their whatever their weight is.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying though. Whenever Khabib steps into the octagon, we're seeing a guy who's walking around probably at 170 and 80 whenever he gets into the ring, fighting a 155er who's just got up to a 160.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And then you got Ben who's at 170 when he weighs in, he's probably walking in there at 180. Handling a guy who's probably at 180. So there's a difference in competition there.
Difference in competition, difference in skill. It's really going to be very skilled. Because on top of that, Ben Askren is a magician on his feet. I think the last 2 fights I watched of his, the last 2 he had, I don't think he got hit at all.
I think he himself said he doesn't get hit. He hasn't been hit in like 4 fights, 3 or 4 fights.
I don't think he got hit at all in his last 2 fights that I watched. I watched his last one, then his retirement fight, quote unquote. But I don't remember him getting hit at all. And he beat the hell out of the last guy. The last guy he fought, Noki, was like 42-7, right, in his win-loss record. And he beat him with no problem, like first round. That was kind of amazing. So I don't know. We saw a little bit of what Khabib can do on his feet, and we've seen a little bit more in his last couple fights. But I don't know if he's going to be that good. So say they do decide to fight, that's going to be one of the ones that it's either going to make or break Khabib. Whoever wins that fight, it can be considered one of the GOATs.
If Ben comes in and he's able to beat Khabib, I mean, that's going to set a precedence for everybody in there. Like, dude, look, y'all got to learn how to wrestle. You can't just be stand-up artists. You can't just be BJJ masters. You got to learn how to wrestle, because look at what DC does with his wrestling. He tosses around guys that are 225 plus.
Well, I mean, if you look at the list of champions in the UFC right now, right? You got Henry Cejudo, who's a wrestler. You got TJ Dillashaw, who came out of Alpha Male, which they wrestle. That's their thing. Max Holloway, he's more versatile. Brian Ortega, he's more of a BJJ type guy. But then you got the lightweight division, which is Khabib. You got Tyron Woodley, he's a wrestler. You got Robert Whittaker, who's all over the place, really. Then the light heavyweight and heavyweight are all wrestlers. It's DC. Before that, John Jones is from Winklejohns. A lot of wrestling there, So wrestling is dominating the UFC right now, and you need to have that base. It ebbs and flows with what skills are really good to have in any division, but right now it's about wrestling, and you have to have that, and that's something that a lot of people are realizing really quickly, and they're getting better at it. A lot of the people that beforehand you were like, no, he doesn't got too much of a ground game. He's actually got a little bit of ground game now. Like Conor, when he was taken down, he was getting back up. He got back up for Khabib a few times. That's something a lot of people want to talk about, but he's got a ground game because he realized he's lacking it because there's this massive, like, if I can control the fight where it takes place, then I can win the fight. So people are realizing it now, and Ben Askren's like the master of knowing how to take someone to wherever he wants to go. So it's going to be interesting to see what he does in the UFC from any point of view.
I'm excited for the possibility of a Khabib versus Askren fight. As soon as this deal news broke, I was just all about it. I texted my brother, I was like, "Hey man, you looking at this?" He sent me tweets. We're like, "Oh man, this is crazy." The other thing I'm really looking forward to is seeing what Mighty Mouse does, because Mighty Mouse is the greatest flyweight. He really is. With 11 title defenses, you can't really deny the man's strength and speed and his ability to overcome any opponent that walks in there. And his last loss, I don't agree with it, like I've said plenty of times, but if he goes forward into one and he just wrecks the division and stays on top there and racks up another 11, 12 defenses.
Well, see, ONE FC, they're going to give him a title shot right away. There's no point in why not. He's a big draw, and since they have this, like, they're essentially going to spearhead the American market. They have the huge deal in Asia, and I think they're almost done with one in America. That being said, they got Brandon Vera, who's a former UFC challenger in lightweight. He's a heavyweight champ over there now, which is pretty good. But they recently acquired Eddie Alvarez, which is, that's their guy right now. They're like, this is the guy we're going to head into America with.
I'm wondering if they gave Mighty Mouse the same kind of deal that Eddie says he got. Eddie Alvarez says he got an 8-figure deal to sign with.
I think they probably did. They're like, hey, we're going to pay you a lot of money. But Mighty Mouse and Eddie also have this option now to put shit on their shorts to get more people, like more advertisers on there, more sponsors, which that's good for them. Especially with Eddie and Mighty Mouse have this opportunity. With Mighty Mouse, he's got that Twitch stream that he can do. He can put all that shit on his shorts. He's, a reigning champ for the longest time. He's got plenty of people wanting to see him fight. That combined with the fact that they're going to make him the lead guy there, he's going to make a lot of money coming up.
Yeah,
with a lot of money.
With Mighty Mouse going over there and Eddie over there, you have two really good champs that are really recognizable, being ones like figureheads to really promote them over in the Americas. It's just going to be really good for them, especially with names, because Eddie Alvarez is a name. He's held belts everywhere he's went. Mighty Mouse, greatest flyweight of all time. I mean, you got something to spearhead you. So I'm really looking forward to see what Mighty Mouse does. No matter where he goes until the day he retires, I'm going to try to watch all his fights. So I'm a big fan. Shout out to Demetrius Johnson.
You watch his Twitch stream later?
No.
We can watch his Twitch stream later.
No. Only if he's not playing Fortnite.
I've watched it a few times.
Nah, he's on Battleground or PlayerUnknown's and the new Black Ops a lot right now.
Yeah, I've never seen him play Fortnite. I don't think he really likes the game, does he?
No, he's been on it a few times.
See, I've never caught him when he was on Fortnite. I imagine he did it. People play the game. It's going to be interesting to see what ONE Championship does now, because they have the deal, so that means they might have a couple fights over here, which I want to watch. I want to watch these fights, and hey, if they come to Dallas, definitely going to be there.
If they come to Dallas, being a smaller promotion, maybe the tickets will be cheaper and we can go. I know when Bellator comes up to Windstar or Choctaw, I can't remember which one. I know their tickets are like $40. So.
We're working on that one.
Yeah, I want to try to go to one of those and get you guys some live footage, but
we're working on that one.
So, anyways, big news other than that, Jake? You got anything?
That was the big news. That was the one that really put the MMA world on shock today. It was the Ben Askren trade and what it opens up to. Other than that, I mean, not really any big news. There is a fight night this weekend, but it's not very important.
It's Volkan Ozdemir and Anthony Lionheart Smith. So I look forward to that main fight, that title, or that
Main event.
there you go. That main event should be really good. Anthony Smith has been on a tear recently, knocking out every legend he's come up to. Now, Vulcan being a more modern guy, and DC showing how to beat him, just throw him to the ground and you can lay on him because he had no answers for wrestling. If Anthony Smith is smart, he'll go in there and wrestle him and get the win and keep his win streak going.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think Anthony. I think he has a potential for a title shot. He definitely needs to develop a little bit more in certain areas, but I think he's got the potential. Like he's a couple more fights, I can see him being like, "Oh, we'll put you for an interim title," or like however that belt situation is going to happen. Whenever they're going to give John Jones the belt back, because that's probably what's going to happen.
I'm pretty sure that's going to happen, and I'm not very happy about it, but it's not for me to decide, right?
Well, come on, man. You got some pull at the UFC. You can talk to him.
Yeah, let me tell you. Other than the fight card this weekend, the one after that will be the actual UFC 230, the Spearhead November, and start that out, and that'll be the title fight of DC versus the Black Beast, and there's a few fights on there that are going to be really good.
230 is going to be good.
Yeah, so we're going to rip into that one coming up soon, so stay tuned for that one. There's just a quick glance about 5 fights that I definitely want to see, and they're not all on the main card, which is a good thing. They're spread out a little bit, so I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah, 230 is going to be great. Weidman pulled out of that one, or not Weidman. Who was he fighting? Rockhold got injured, and they put Jacare in there, which that's going to be an interesting fight. I wanted to watch the rematch, but that's not happening now because, Luke Glasschin over there decides to break every time.
Somebody probably, farted in his direction and knocked him out.
It's amazing how, every time, I really want to watch this dude fight. He's good. I've seen him, I saw when he was in Strikeforce. Something happens every time.
The fight to really look out for on that card, if you're paying attention to all the shit talking that's going, is Derek Brunson versus, I don't know how to say his last name, but Israel Adesanya, the last stylebender, who's coming in with a fury in his fights. He's 14-0 in his MMA career. I really like him, but the shit talking that's going on with these guys is just great.
The interesting part about that is I noticed they're putting the stylebender against a lot of stand-up dudes as of recently.
I did notice that.
Because he comes from a kickboxing background, and when you want to build up somebody, that's how you do it. So I wonder how he would do against a guy who's like a wrestler, a guy who's going to come in and not take shit, grab him, take him down. I don't think he would last too long with the champ right now, Whittaker, but I do think he has a lot of possibility if he can develop that. We really haven't seen much of it, but it's going to be interesting to see how it is. I want to see him against a wrestler for sure in his next fight.
I don't even know who would be in that division in those top 10s to really give you who else is in that?
No way.
Yeah, that would be a wrestler that he would be able to fight.
Yoel Romero. Oh no, he went up, didn't he? He went to
He went up to
Weidman. Weidman.
Really? Weidman's a.
Unless he went up to lightweight. Yeah, he was champ.
That's right, he was.
Yeah, for a couple fights.
Well, then put him up against Jacare Souza in the next one.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
Souza's a good ground guy. He's got his BJJ is really fucking good. So.
Yeah, that would be interesting. I want to see what it's like when he's not in control of the fight and how he can come out of that situation.
That is true. But we'll cover more of UFC 230 later on this week, and we'll get you that card. Other than that, I don't think we have any news other than the trade. Quick mention on the cards. Jacob, do you got anything?
The only thing is the upcoming event. The Dallas Crystal Cup opening happens November 10th. This is their 5th annual one that's happening down here. They have a feature division called the Ultimate Grappler Qualifier. That is a man's no-gi advanced absolute. The winner qualifies and advances to compete in Orlando, Florida, where the Ultimate Grappler 2018 will be crowned and a grand prize of $2,500 will be awarded. Early registration is October 21st. Late registration is November 6th. Late registration should be November 9th. Learn more about it on nucjjf.com. Good.
So, nothing else? Jacob's got nothing else? I got nothing else. Thanks for listening. Thanks for making it this far. Follow us on Twitter at
Hooked JP, and you're Hooked Justin.
@HookedJustin.
Yeah. This is a little short podcast. We figured we'd cover the big news this week. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening.
Bye.